Hi, I'm Danny giving my last persuasive speech, and this is my lovely audience right there. See everybody? I think that's everybody. Yep. Okay, so my speech today is on the importance of voting and why voting matters. Um, so, the most important thing about voting that I think we should hold in mind is that women didn't gain the vote, didn't gain the ability to vote until the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920. But that is only for white women. Indigenous Americans, regardless of gender, could not vote until 1924. Asian Americans, regardless of gender, could not vote until 1952, and the majority of African American citizens could not vote until 1965. And it's taken most of our nation's history for universal suffrage to be achieved, and it's still one of the least utilized rights. Voter turnout has plunged in previous years, but voting matters. I believe that so strongly that I vote in every election. And many of us are unhappy with the direction the country is going in, regardless of our political affiliations. And voting is the most effective outlet and tool we have to voice this dissatisfaction. However, voting turnout is slipping with every election. This is creating an elected body that does not represent the demography, values, or ideals of most Americans. And this can only be changed by more of us turning out to vote. According to the Pew Research Center, only about 50% of registered voters turned out in the 2012 presidential election, and even less than that came out during the 2014 midterms. That means that only 50% of voters have their interests represented, and this group is overwhelmingly older, white, conservative, and male, according to a study done by the Demos organization. The same study shows that there is a direct link between voter demographics and values and those held by their elected officials. This is especially true on the local level, where voting truly matters the most. The majority of the issues that are being hotly debated today are enforced at the local and state levels. North Carolina is a perfect example of this. HB 2, also known as the bathroom bill in media, dealt with a whole host of hot-button issues, from the controversial bathroom provisions to the section that forbid counties from raising their minimum wage beyond the federal $7.25. Often, state and local elections are determined by the narrowest of margins as well, so some of them come down to really just 5 votes. According to the New York Times, one of the biggest factors driving poor voter turnout is apathy and feelings of disenfranchisement. A good deal of people who don't vote abstain because they feel as though their vote doesn't actually matter. However, in these hotly contested local and state elections, it may boil down to just those 5 votes to decide a Senate, a state senator, a mayor, or even in the past 20 years, and historically as the past 20 years have shown us, presidential elections are won and lost by just a handful of counties in several states. These deciding votes tend to be cast by older, white conservative men. An overview of the voters from the past several elections compiled by the Demos organization shows this. This is problematic for the rest of America that does not match these parameters. Another study by Demos shows the voter gap, that is, the likelihood of older whites to vote when compared to minorities, has real impacts on policy. A study by the Journal of American Politics shows that voter preference predict the votes of senators over 60% of the time. That is, how a senator will vote on the floor when an issue comes up, while the preferences of those who do not vote in that same district have no correlation with how senators vote. According to Demos, non-voters tend to be more liberal than voters on social issues like increasing minimum wage, family leave, and affordable housing in most counties. Politicians tend to align themselves more closely with those who are most likely to vote in those districts. In areas with higher voter turnout, there is more being done to address inequalities and problems plaguing those districts, as well as higher turnover for elected officials, meaning that they're more accountable to the voters who elect them. This is important because accountability to politicians viewing themselves as accountable to their constituents mean they're more likely to respect the voices of the voters who've chosen them. This means actually going to the polls with some idea of who is what has been voting on when it comes time for you to vote. The internet offers plenty of internet resources to find for voter education, from how to register, what's being voted on, and where and when to cast your ballot. Actually going out and voting is the most direct way to influence the policy changes you want to see, whether it's raising the minimum wage or getting rid of daylight savings time. While there are many hurdles to voting, including lack of access and feeling of apathy, it is incredibly vital nonetheless. The efforts to suppress voters and keep people from the polls can only be combated by going out and voting the politicians who are enforcing these policies out of office. Furthermore, these feelings of apathy only benefit the same system that inspires them. The truth of the matter is, nothing will change if no one does anything to change it. Exercising your right to vote is part of the force for change that everyone desires. More people voting can only mean a more representative government, and not just on a national level. By becoming invested in local and state outcomes, we can shape our communities directly. A more representative government also means that more time, energy, and resources will be directed at places that benefit the many people in the community, not just the few voters. And there has been a lot of casting in these past few elections as more of the same. And this is true as long as we keep going on as we always have. Most of us are unhappy in one way or another on how things are going in America, but unless we get out and vote, then nothing really will change. As the PBS article points out, more of the same rapidly becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we allow apathy to win out and do nothing to change, then nothing does. America has always been a country of progress, for better or for worse, and voting is a direct driver of this progress. By not voting, it means we are just along for the ride to someone else's ideal future, regardless of how well it aligns with our own hopes and dreams.